This was the brief I was given. Anybody notice the mistake? Yes. Well, I couldn't change it. Differential diagnosis of rheumatic type conditions for clinical prospecting. I think I knew what it meant, but I ignored it anyway. So what I thought I'd do is, I've talked to you guys before about things like rheumatoid disease and various other things, and I'm going to take a slightly different tack this time. Actually, do I need this, or is that okay? Yeah, good. There we go. I'll take a different tack, but this is interactive. Questions. I will, if you wish, I will go the way you want to go. All right? Because you've all had a long day, you've had a long week, you've just had something to eat, and I can already hear some Zs. So the best way to do this is to actually, rather than me just regurgitating stuff that's on the screen, is if you've got questions, we'll go with that. And if I run out of time, I'm very, very sorry, but I'm sure you'll invite me back yet again. So, acute monoarthritis. Acute. You know all the terminology. In case you don't, that comes on quickly. I don't know about you, I get very annoyed when patients say, "Oh, doctor, my pain's something chronic." Yeah, you've had it for a long time. No, it's really bad. Use proper terminology. So something is mono, one joint, arthritis. The joint, itis, inflamed. Giving away all my secrets here, aren't I? So, what are they? There are lots of causes. You know all this. If you know all this, please tell me to shut up and move on. Non-inflammatory osteoarthritis. That's a non sequitur. It's got itis on the end of it. But it is actually part of the sort of non-inflammatory diseases. Actually, I sit in a special interest group for osteoarthritis in the UK, and I actually asked a question about 10 years ago at the back, because I was a bit young, I was a young consultant type. Please, sir, why doesn't osteoarthritis hurt? Everyone looked at me as a bit daft, a bit. And actually, we've all got it in lots of joints, but it only hurts when it gets inflamed. That's the inflammation process. So it's basically wear and tear, but they have attacks of inflammation. Trauma, obvious. Hemarthrosis, blood in a joint. Sickle cell disease. Not a huge amount around here, but you do have it, and there are some white people who can have sickle cell disease. I have seen it. You know about sickle cell disease? Yeah. Predominantly, it's a malaria protection construct, if you believe in evolutionary theory. Unfortunately, it can damage a lot of people, particularly people from Western Africa. Avascular process, and I'll run through some of the inflammatory things as well. Inflammation, of course, is the hallmark is stiffness, swelling, and pain. So, osteoarthritis, primary or idiopathic. We all get osteoarthritis. I do talks for medical students and junior doctors, and I do some really weird stuff. They love it, you know, with vasculitis, with horrible gammy pictures and things. So I say, I'm going to talk to you today about osteoarthritis, and you can see them going a bit glazed. Oh dear, because it's normally during their lunchtime, and they're munching their sandwiches and thinking, oh God, let's try and escape. I say, I'm going to present a case. So I say, I'm going to present a case. This is Sue. She's a 73-year female who has arthritis in her knee. And they're a bit comatose by then. And then I show them a picture of Sue. Sue is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Sue is the most complete T-Rex skeleton ever discovered, and Sue lives in the University of San Antonio in America. And she has a arthritic knee, and very interestingly, she's got healed rib fractures. Now, if a tiger which hunts alone fractures a rib, so I'm going off on a tangent again, I hope you don't mind. If a tiger fractures a rib, it will die of starvation, so it can't hunt. These ribs to have healed, something looked after it. Pack animals, which is why in Jurassic Park, now T-Rex is a pack animal. Anyway, we digress. Primary osteoarthritis, so we all get a bit of this. There are genetic factors here. It is associated with estrogen. Women, you're screwed. Estrogen, I'm afraid, is not a very good thing to have. It runs on the female side of the family, the knobbly fingers, and I'll show you some pictures of that in a second. And often, mum's got it, aunt's got it, Grand's got it. If mum hasn't got it, then dad's mum has got it. And you just see this, and you just tell them, well, you've got any daughters, don't tell them, they'll blame you. But there are secondary things that cause this as well. Infection, congenital abnormalities, trauma, and avascular necrosis. So the histology of cartilage, this is a cartilage of the cartilage, this is the bit of bone, this is the cartilage. Wonderful piece of engineering, cartilage. It is the coefficient of friction. Who did physics at school? An ice cube. Anyone got an ice cube? No, they've all melted. Never mind. And one ice cube, another ice cube on top of each other. How slippery they are. Healthy cartilage is a tenth of that. Phenomenal piece of engineering. But it also does this. There's some give in it. So it's a wonderful piece of engineering when it is healthy. Unfortunately, when it starts to get damaged, it doesn't heal very well. And it starts to get a little bit of fibrillation on the top here. And then rather than having a nice smooth surface, like two snooker balls rubbing on each other, it starts to become more frayed, and it's like two golf balls rubbing on each other, and then it's like two bits of coral rubbing on each other. You can imagine why that would start to be uncomfortable. This is a bit of science, so particularly boring a bit, but these are cartilage cells here, chondrocytes, and these produce various things. These things, collagenases, are important. You ever heard of the gecko lizard? Yeah? It gets attacked by a predator. What does it do to its tail? It amputates its tail, doesn't it? It produces these things called matrix metalloproteinases, which basically makes its tail just falls off. These are the most potent enzymes your body produces, and at the end, when the tail falls off, it wiggles away like that. Okay? I forgot this is being video. I'm going to look really stupid. And so the predator goes after the tail, and the gecko gets away. These matrix metalloproteinases are very, very powerful. There's lots of processes in place to actually inhibit their activity. And when this is imbalance of these processes, then things start to get damaged. In osteoarthritis, these collagenases start to destroy the collagen matrix, and it can break down. And in the when the people have a genetic predisposition to this, there's an imbalance in the way their genetics puts things together. The symptoms, you know all these things, yeah? It's all in your pack, so I'm not going to go for it. What does it look like? This is the osteoarthritis in the joints. The Heberden's nose. I love these names, by the way. These were all Victorian physicians. The big, great big muttons, lovely crop coats. All these things named after them. Oops. These things are called Bouchard's nose. And this bit actually here at the bottom of the thumb doesn't actually have a name. We call it square with the thumb base. These are the classical features of osteoarthritis. You have it in these joints, you're going to get it in other joints. These are high pressure joints. You all got pens in front of you, yeah? Hold your pen up for me. What are you doing? You've got your thumb, you've turned it round, and you've done that. You're the only creature that can do that. Give it to a monkey, and it'll grip it like that. They don't have opposable thumbs. The pressure in this ring is very, very high. Higher than in your knees when you're walking. These joints get affected by osteoarthritis. But other joints do as well. The pressure areas. The knees, but the one that they all get is why you all have a job. The facet joints. High pressure joints, they all get little osteophytes on them. They all get facet joint pain. So you see it in the hands, you say, what about your back? Oh, I'll go and see an osteopath. It does it for me every couple of months. I feel better. Fine, wonderful, it works. But this is not just in joints, it will be everywhere else. Now there are some risk factors associated with this which are outside of just simple genetics. And there was a study actually published just a couple of weeks ago which looked at people now, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And we have people now who have much less physical activity. They don't have to go down pit. But who has more osteoarthritis? Now, 100 years ago, 200 years ago? Now. Why? Sorry? Your belly, BMI over 26, that's most of us, well, me, don't have most of you, and smoking. Smoking has pushed up the Now, smoking actually was really picked off during the last century, but not really about 100 years ago. There still wasn't huge amounts of smoking there. So these factors will aggravate this. And the fat tissue drives inflammation, produces adipokines, these cytokines, which are immune chemicals from fat tissue. One of them causes the joints to swell up. There's another one called TGF-beta, which causes insulin resistance, ergo type 2 diabetes. So there's a link with these things in metabolic disease. X-rays look, you start to wear down. Do you actually can you get access to actually looking at X-rays when you do your job, or you just get reports? Sorry, you can see here these joints should be nice and smooth, should be a nice space here. Left body, we've got bone on bone here. That's an ouch. It may not actually be that painful though. Patients don't complain, oh, I've got bone rubbing on bone. They say, I've got pain. And they get pain because that rubs, 2 bits of coal, something goes, they get inflammation, and that's what causes the pain. And the hip hardly moves. You've all seen these patients in your clinic. You can't move the hip. Yeah, you've all seen them. They come into you, oh, this person's got a bad back. Yeah, and you move the hip, and actually the hip hardly moves. They actually not complaining of much pain, but sooner or later you may fail. The fitter you are, the less of the pain. Treatments, loads of things. Loads of things. None of them are brilliant. In rheumatoid disease, we have these things called DMARDs, disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. They're brilliant, they reduce inflammation, they reduce damage, they reduce the prognosis and progression of the disease. We don't have that in osteoarthritis. We all get it. Nothing really works very well at all. Protecting joints, it helps. Keeping the muscles strong, apparently that's probably one of the best things you can do. Exercise. When somebody comes to see you with a bad back, don't just manipulate them. They need back exercises as well. They will keep coming back to you time in, time out. Maybe that's a good idea. But the core muscle strength is very, very helpful. Yoga is as good as physiotherapy. Recent study published in the American College of Rheumatology big journal. Drugs. Doctors now like to poison people with drugs. That's what I do for a living. Anti-inflammatories, they work for acute problems. Chronic pain, these things aren't that great. Steroid injections. High dose, low amount, high concentration in a joint area. It can buy you a degree of relief, so you can do things like exercise, which makes things better. Hyaluronic acid injections. NICE say we're not allowed to use these because they don't work. Actually, they do, but NICE don't want us to use them because they cost about £200 or £300 a shot. The hyaluronic acid is artificial joint fluid. Very high molecular weight substance, injected in the knee, and it may reduce joint damage, and about 50% of our patients do very well. We do lots of other areas as well. We do hips, we do ankles, we can do small joints. Good. Now, chondroitin. By the way, glucosamine, don't waste your money. Waste of money, doesn't work. Chondroitin, recent study in fact, it was published a year ago, but it's only just been published on the paper version of one of our journals, Annals of Rheumatic Disease, comparing chondroitin to one of the best anti-inflammatories to a placebo to osteoarthritis of the knee. That was as good as an anti-inflammatory, and it was better than a placebo. But the dose of that was 800 milligrams. It's the pharmacological dose, quite hard to find that. Well, most of my patients have had to get it from Amazon Marketplace because you're not going to get it in the high street. You'll be lucky to get 200 milligrams in a capsule in Hollands and Barrett. Vitamin D and K I've recently put on because there was a study from the conference 2 weeks ago, which unfortunately I couldn't get to because it was in San Diego. No sponsorship anymore. Which showed that actually that was quite effective for osteoarthritis of the knee as well. Vitamin D, high dose, and K, although they didn't actually, in the abstract, stick local dose. But vitamin D is, again, a very, very useful vitamin. It helps muscle strength. And there's lots of other benefits to it, which we will come to later. And of course, in the end, there's surgery. Unfortunately, NHS seem to like that a lot. So everybody wants to have operations. For a lot of people, they're not the right choice. They're great for bone on bone, they're great for angulation. Surgery for backs, terrible. I mean, I have to say, once you've had surgery on your back, I think there's a ticking time bomb. It's going to have to need more and more problems. I mean, you must see all these patients coming to you. I don't know how you deal with them, to be honest with you, because they're expecting a magic solution, and surgery often just makes things, may have temporary benefit, but long term, there's not so great. In this country, we're actually much better doing back surgery than they are in the States, where they'll operate on anybody. And take $40,000 out of your bank balance, for the honour. Surgery isn't always the answer. Very good for knees. When you've got bone on bone like that, and angulation, that works. When you've actually got a reasonably looking normal joint, be careful, because there may be other factors behind the pain. And there's other procedures that can be done as well.
Do you rate arthroscopes?
Sorry?
Do you rate arthroscopes?
It depends if you're looking at all an arthroscope is a joint telescope, basically. You're having a look.
And just washing it out?
Washing out doesn't work. It is a lovely little nugget for orthopaedic surgeons. Nice they don't use it. Actually, there's no data that it really works. If you're going to debride something, so you've got a tear in your a meniscal tear. Yeah, what about meniscal tears? Knees lock. You know how to do the dance test for meniscal tears, yeah? Yeah, I love doing that. Patients think I'm a bit loony. You know, if you're looking for a debridement, arthroscopically brilliant. If you're looking for a synovectomy, arthroscopically excellent. Arthroscopic repairs, excellent. But just doing a washout, to be honest with you, no data. In fact, actually there is data. The data is it doesn't make any difference. So actually on the NHS we don't do it now. People still do it privately because people have got mortgages. Trauma, little factor there. Obviously if somebody comes to see you and says, I've hurt my knee and it's swollen, you know, anyone needs an X-ray. Because if it's trauma, you start to try and manipulate it, you try and do something silly to it. If I start trying to put steroids into it, and there's a trauma, you're not going to do it them any favours whatsoever. Haemophiliacs, you know about haemophilia? Yeah? These people bleed. Often commonest is factor VIII deficiency, predominantly blokes. This is where one of the few things that actually blokes get it worse than women. And you bleed into joints, particularly lower limb. Actually, you can sometimes be asymptomatic, but the blood actually damages the bone. It's actually quite toxic to the bone, and when young kids get it, they get disparity in leg length, and they start to then tilt over. It's a bit of a disaster. And even actually giving factor VIII replacement doesn't stop the bleeding. It may reduce it, but doesn't stop it. And actually what you see here is the synovium, which is the lining in the joint. By rather being nice and smooth, becomes a bit like cauliflower, and it's all higgledy-piggledy, and it produces fluid, and it gets in the way, it gets caught, and it actually can be you can have a disruptive arthritis. Now I'm going to get you used to work now. What do you see there? I'll give you a clue. This is a blood film. I'm being horrible. You want to go to sleep, don't you? Anybody want to take a pun? Because I'm being mean. I'm being mean. Give a girl a peanut. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so these are normal cells. There's not enough of them, first of all. So you don't have enough blood cells, you are anemic. They do say one of these things, you should be able to, if this was a little car, you should be able to drive it, you shouldn't be able to drive it all the way from one side of the field to the other, and you can, so this is anemic. But all the blood cells should look like that. That's actually got a bit of DNA remnants. This thing has been removed, or has removed itself. But what you've got here, these things called sickle cells. Okay? No oxygen tensions. A nice round, malleable blood cell just does this. I'm forgetting I'm being filmed. And now I'm going to go through this blood vessel here. This is the blood vessel here. I'm going to go between the table. If I'm a normal blood vessel, I can squeeze through. If I'm a sickle cell, I do this. And I get stuck. and then everything down there gets ischemic. And that happens in the brain. So these are young kids, these are young Afro-Caribbean boys and girls who sickle their brain, and they even have strokes. It happens in joints. They get these very, very, and if you've seen sickle cell disease having a crisis, it's the most painful thing you can think of. I worked with a chap once who had sickle cell disease, and he had been in a motorcycle bike accident, and he had fractured both of his femurs. He says, "Oh, that's fine, it's nothing compared to a sickle crisis." And they need huge doses of morphine. You can sickle in the lungs, which is dangerous. You can sickle anywhere, and the oxygen tension gets low. Well done, very, very good. So this is what you see. So you get the sorry, I'm patronising, very sorry. So you see all these things here, like they get stuck, and then it's almost like little blood clots form, and you get sickling in the blood system. And that can cause all sorts of problems. Adaptally, so you get problems with your fingers, bone pain, swelling in your joints, bones die, sort of osteonecrosis, which I'll come to in a second, bones die, increased risk of septic arthritis, all the other horrible things these poor guys get. And it is a horrible condition. So, and the reason we have sickle cell disease, malaria, because actually if you are sickle tray, so you have one normal hemoglobin gene and then you have one sickle cell gene, your cells die quicker, the cells get taken out of your body a bit quicker than normal. The malaria doesn't have a chance to go through its normal cycle and come through the other side, so you actually protect against malaria. Unfortunately, when you have the sickle cell gene and the sickle cell gene, it just wipes you out. It just shows how bad malaria is. There's a survival advantage of having such a nasty condition. Unfortunately, once you have it, it's difficult to treat it. Bone marrow transplants do work. There are some sort of chemotherapy type agents which will increase the levels of other sorts of hemoglobin which may help. And you can see here, these are sort of bone infarcts. Okay, this is where the bone itself has been starved and it's actually died. And you can imagine that would make the leg shorter. And humeral head here. So certain parts of the body are more prone to a sickle crisis, to a vascular crisis. The top of the humerus is another one of the part of this. And here, the blood supply here has just been cut off completely, and this is died. And multiple joints can be affected. And that can be very painful. You know, sometimes you're surgery. Sometimes you don't operate on these people. But you can see already, obviously the young person, this is already a very degenerate joint. But avascular necrosis is also seen with other conditions as well. That's a very common one. Booze. I'm glad to see you all tucking into your wine. The one I cause it's people, steroids. In fact, I saw a patient the other day who'd been on high-dose steroids for a couple of years and actually completely, their femoral head had completely disappeared. They'd been walking with basically the femoral neck just articulating into the acetabulum. In fact, they were in a wheelchair. For years it'd been like that. Ouch. But lots of things can do this. And this is the classical sign you see on an X-ray. I don't know if you can see that. What happens is the blood supply, this is to the head of the femur, blood supply runs in here, and it gets blocked at this point. And there's several mechanisms behind that, but when this gets blocked, the pressure in here rises. It's like increasing the pressure in an eggshell. Okay? Increasing. There's nowhere for it to go. So what happens? It blocks more blood vessels. And then the pressure goes up. And what happens is then the stuff inside starts to die. And that's what you're seeing here. This is the cortex starting to break down. You've still got the eggshell there, and then the eggshell will collapse. Once you see that, it's too late. The damage is done. Unfortunately, X-rays, by the time you see this problem on an X-ray, it is too late. The damage is done. You only have to do CTs or MRI scans.
Is sickle cell then like caused by mutation?
Sorry?
Is sickle cell like a mutation in red blood cells to start with?
Yeah, there would have been probably many millions of years ago, there would have been a mutation, and somebody had this sickle thing. And what happens is when your oxygen levels get low, the acidity changes in the cell, and the hemoglobin, rather than being nice and malleable, becomes a crystal, which is why it does this. Yeah? And it sticks out like that. So even with people with a sickle tray, if they are, when the oxygen levels are really, really low, they can sickle, but they would have to be oxygen saturation like 30%, 40%. But these cells are not as malleable as they should do, and they get wiped out by the spleen more quickly and by the bone marrow, which is why the malaria cycle doesn't have a chance to complete. These people are protected from malaria. So yes, it was a mutation, but not all mutations are bad. We've got where we are because if you believe in creationism, of course, in evolution rather than creationism, over the sort of millions of years, there's been a mutation, which has been a survival advantage, which meant we've kept it, and then somebody else has another mutation, and these things will change. They're not all bad. Most seem to be, but some may be an advantage. And then you'll take that advantage with you. So, we've done that one there. Any other questions? Everybody still awake?
Yes.
Septic arthritis. You mustn't miss this. This is a nasty. They're probably not coming to you, these patients, but you can get a septic arthritis affecting the back, and that's not common, and they can be quite difficult to diagnose. Predominantly, it's midline, lower limb, and spine involvement. The standard bugs, which you can do this. Staph aureus is the nasty one, but they can all do this. This is a young person. You're not allowed to answer because you're too clever. This is a young person, 18-year-old male, just joined the Merchant Navy. Who's in the question? We present with lots of little joints inflamed, and he has that rash. Oh, who said that? Oh, yeah, far too clever. So gonorrhea, we don't see huge amounts of this around here, but I saw lots of this in London. That rash can often be missed. But gonorrhea actually causes a septic arthritis as well. But it's not as nasty as some of the other, the Staph aureus and things that we see. The major ones we're concerned about are staph, tuberculosis. Of course, those patients are immunosuppressed, which increasing numbers of people are, they can get all sorts of weird and wonderful in the joints as well. And very quickly you'll go from a normal joint to a joint which is completely disintegrated. You can see all the architecture here has sort of fallen apart. We get pain, infection in the bone, and it lifts up the periosteum. The periosteum, you know that? The bone has a skin on it, yeah? And it lifts it up. You see this with a fracture as well, and that's a feature of, you see that, you think, when somebody's got fever, you think, something nasty going on there. And you have to look harder. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell on that, but somebody's got a swollen bit, it's red, they got a fever, think about sepsis. Because if you miss a septic joint, that joint falls apart very quickly. Why? It's the body's defence mechanisms. It's not so much the bugs, it's those things called matrix metalloproteinases that become unbridled and they just destroy everything around it. The cartilage, the bone, gone. And so it's a body response. We've had a lot of the infections we see. Sorry.
Just wondering what kind of time frame you need to work in if you see a hot swollen joint.
If you see a hot swollen joint, if you think they've got septic arthritis, hello Mr. Patient, you need to go to A&E. Because if you don't, you will get sued successfully. That's probably the most important reason. If there's infection in a joint, you need to treat it straight away. Because the other thing about infection in a joint, how did it get there? Now, is it a heroin addict who's injected into a little vein around the knee and it's direct? Actually, is this endocarditis? Because 25% of septic arthritis actually have endocarditis behind it, and you don't treat that, the patients die. And Staph aureus septicemia kills people. I think it's in the antibiotic era, we've forgotten how bad sepsis can be. We get lulled into a false sense of security. Oh, have some antibiotics, you'll treat it. We're seeing more and more patients now where the antibiotics don't work. And the pre-antibiotic era, I remember the case, the first person ever given penicillin. He was in the garden and he got a road scratch from his face. And then he got sepsis, and he had these suppurating lesions with both sides of his face. What they had to do, they just put wicks in to try and train the pus out. He got given penicillin, the first ever made, and they just gave him a lot, but they didn't have enough, so they gave him some. His infection got better, then it came back and killed him. This is a chap in his 30s, fit, healthy prior to this. Here's a rose cut. That's what sepsis does. So we can't ignore it. Who likes their port? At Christmas, fantastic. Okay. This is sort of a classical image of the gout. Much talked about in Victorian Britain. There was a lot of opulence, there was a lot of deprivation, a lot of opulence. And these sort of rather rotund people, big bellies, just like mine, drinking port. Port comes from where?
Portugal.
Yes! And they brought it from Portugal in these great big vats lined with lead. And actually all these guys actually had lead-induced gouts. And actually in Victoria Britain, all the waterworks were gout. They had a lot of gout in Rome. They actually used lead as a food flavouring. It's apparently sweet. And the waterways and some of the cooking utensils were lead-based. So I actually talked to somebody down in Bath about this, and they said the Romans used bath and they used it anyway. So the gout. It was actually first really defined by a chap called Thomas Sydenham, another one of these Victorian physicians, and he had gout. And he said, I could feel people in the room by the air wafting against my foot. It is an exquisitely painful condition. Sickle cell disease, kidney stones, gout are the three most painful conditions that man can have. I didn't say woman, I said man. Okay? Actually, women who have gout, which is actually not common, they do say that they think that their gout is more painful than childbirth, but that may have been some years previously, so they've forgotten it. But I like that sort of line. So what is it? Arthritis. Sodium uric crystals in one or more joints, that's its definition. And it's got lots of boring things associated with it. So what is gout? Gout is a crystal which is part of the purine pathway. Purine's DNA synthesis. And again, if you believe evolutionary theory, a couple of million years ago, we were living in the trees in Africa. We were on all fours. But these lovely savannas were there because the mammoths came along and cleared a lot of spaces, and we wanted to get onto that space. But the grass was too high, we couldn't see above it. We wanted to stand on two legs. If you make creatures stand on two legs, they will faint because their blood pressure is not high enough. We lost an enzyme. We lost an enzyme called uricase, which means our uric acid levels start to build up. It pushes up our blood pressure. I can stand up without fainting. So there are metabolic issues associated with that. Let me survive parties. Gorillas, chimpanzees can also get gout, and most other creatures can't because they still have this enzyme. Affects lots and lots of people. It's probably much commoner than we think it is. Very badly treated, overdiagnosed and underdiagnosed. Does that make sense? So a lot of people have had a bit of wear and tear in the big toe until they got gout. They don't. They've got a bit of wear and tear in the big toe. A lot of people have gout until they've got something else. It is more common in men. In fact, actually, women are relatively protected, and vegetarians don't get it very often. There are genetic factors. The Polynesians get awful gout. In the Polynesian cultures, the most attractive thing is to be really big. I mean, really big, enormous. And that's in cultures where food is scarce. So most people are underweight. So actually, again, I digress slightly because I can. If you look at in this country, when there is food aplenty, the attractive female person is slim. So in the 1920s, we had food. So actually, lots of women wanted to be slim, so they actually took worm capsules. We had the Second World War. Food was hard to come by. Well, after that, who were the pin-ups? Marilyn Monroe and Russell. Size 16, size 18. And then food becomes more common again, and then we have the Twiggies of the world. So it's the opposite of what most people have achieved. In Polynesia, it was food was hard to come by, it was difficult life, and then suddenly KFC comes along. Hey, barley bucket! And these people like being big, and they would eat literally KFC for breakfast, dinner, and evening meal, and they would get gout everywhere. Not just in the joints, they'll get in their skin. And a friend of mine actually worked out with one of the Polynesian countries, and he said these people used to come in, and literally the whole arm was 3 times the size with gout under the skin. So there are genetic factors here as well. And this is how the Victorians describe it. It's like the devil, it's always the devil sort of biting your toe. Classically it's the big toe, classically it's the peripheral bits. The conventional wisdom is that because these are the bits that are cold. And cold bits, the crystals tend to come out of solution. Now, when I talk about the crystals, who did chemistry at school? Yeah? So who remembers supersaturation? Yeah? No. Get a glass. Get a beaker. Put salt in it. Stir it. A bit more salt in it, stir it. A bit more salt in it, stir it. Get to a level where it gets saturated, yeah? Put a Bunsen burner underneath it. After setting fire to your mate's tie, because that's what you need to do. And then heat it up, put more stuff. You can dissolve more stuff in it, keep dissolving it. And so you get this warmer temperature, you can dissolve more solute in it. And then when it cools down, it becomes super saturated. And then suddenly it does this. All the crystals appear all at once. And that's what happens in the joints. And this stuff gets deposited in joints, in tendons, and in other areas as well. It's associated, it goes through various phases. Asymptomatic hypoglycemia, your gout levels are high. At that level, it's snowing into your joints. Acute gouty arthritis. Has everybody here had gout? Will admit to it? No. You've had gout?
No, my husband
does he moan about it?
Not now, no.
No, because he's on treatment. You bet he did. You told him to stop. You said, man flu, shut up. And it's not like childbirth, he said. Yes, it is, it's worse.
Yeah, it's very painful.
It's very, very painful. And then you get more and more attacks, and then it becomes chronic, and it becomes a chronic inflammatory.
Familiar, because his father had it as well.
Yeah, there are genetic factors. I actually had this one chap who was a school teacher, who, in the days when we had blackboards, and he was in his 20s, and he had actually an enzyme deficiency in his kidney, so he wasn't excreting it. It built up very high, and he had his hands were like boxing gloves, about this big, and his great big chalky lump. And when the kids used to trouble him, what he told me, he got his gouty tophus, which is the gouty lump, and he would scrape it down the blackboard. Thank goodness they use whiteboards now. Okay, so the urate saturation is 0.42. Above that, it can start to fall into the joints. Below that, it can start to resorb. People who drink heavily can get high levels of this, and the levels can fluctuate. It tends to, when it falls into the joint. Now, when the levels get low, it can try and come out again. It gets in all sorts of places. The peripheral joint areas are affected primarily, because they're colder. Now, I have to say, I'm not sure that's true or not, but that's certainly what they say. I've got 10 minutes. Am I wittering on inanely again? Right, I'm going to test you on this. This is the enzyme pathway. So these are the purine pathways. And the body tries to hang on to purines. Very expensive to make. This is the metabolic pathway. All this nonsense here. Uric acid here, and at the bottom would be uric acid, which goes to something called aminobutyric acid. Happy days, very soluble, reach out, your dog's got it, your cat's got it, they don't get gout. This builds up. You can actually use some medicines to block this pathway, and if your husband's on allopurinol, that's what he's on. So this is going down, these things are going up, these are much more soluble, you weed them out. Things that can predispose you to this, lots of things. That is the big one. But there are other factors here we can be associated with that, which is all in your handout, so I won't go on it too much. I'm being told I'm overrunning. The stages I've told you about. The attack of gout is actually quite interesting. The way it works. In fact, if I can go to some of the pictures. The way it works, what happens is you have these crystals in your joint. Those things there. They look absolutely beautiful under a microscope. Absolutely. In fact, I had a famous fast bowler actually. I had to ask the joint, he actually accounts in it. But what happens is those crystals are not a bacteria. They're not a normal something. This is something these cells can't deal with. So it tries to gobble them up. Gobbles them up. Can't deal with that. It's like it's being speared. So it says, "Oh, I need some help," in that sort of pathetic voice. And so it calls for help, and it produces these sort of cytokines. And these are the, when you sprain your ankle, what does it do? It gets swollen, red, angry, painful. That's the cytokines being produced, inflammatory response. These produce things called cytokines, interleukin-1. That the inflammasome has been quite sort of implicated in this. And all the other immune cells come along. Now they come along and they say, "Look, we've got some stuff to do. Let's change the acidity. Because it's bugs, let's kill bugs." And they change the acidity. But that makes more uric acid crystals appear. And they try and eat them. And they call for more help. So it starts to wind up. Over 12 to 24 hours, it's like an air raid siren getting louder and louder and louder. Until it doesn't go full speed straight away. And then they'll have 7 to 10 days of exquisite pain. And then the immune system says, "Right, okay, let's switch this off," and then it starts to calm down. But it's a pretty unpleasant experience. People can't put socks on. They can't let you touch it. It says in the books, what you need to do, you need to aspirate the joint with a needle. This is something which is more painful than childbirth. Most patients won't let you near them when you do this. So and actually the definitive way of diagnosing this is actually doing this aspiration. I don't do the aspiration, and I did it very, very badly on the National Gout Audit, because I do an ultrasound scan, and you can see it beautifully on an ultrasound scan, and that don't hurt. You can see the tophus, and you see this thing called double contrast. That's the bone, that's the cartilage, and this is the gout crystal deposited sitting on the top. And that's classically what it looks like. And actually, the commonest joint I've seen with that in is actually on the ankle joint. And this is this sort of very complete mosaic of uric acid. They look beautiful, don't they? You don't want them. You can see them under the skin. Okay? You can squeeze it out. You literally get a needle, you squeeze it out when they let you. I'll probably actually put a ring ball kit to do that. And this thing like toothpaste comes out. It's very satisfying doing that. To somebody else, not to yourself. It damages the joints as well. It puts holes in the bones. So we want to treat gout, we want to stop the attacks, we want to reduce the uric acid levels. Diet, happy days, but there's lots of medicine that can work as well. But gout is not just about the joints. This is a metabolic condition. If you have high uric acid levels, you have a high risk of heart disease. And there's one American study looking at just treating people with high uric acid levels with allopurinol, which is the one that stops the levels going up in the blood, and they halve the risk of having a heart attack. This is metabolic, so there are other factors here with uric acid which are not just about this. And actually, it has an anti-inflammatory effect as well, actually an antioxidant effect. If people have had strokes, if you give intravenous uric acid, it actually reduces the effect of a stroke. There's lots of weird stuff and things about this thing we don't know much about. People do well with this, by and large, but it can, if you treat it properly, they will do well. If you don't treat it properly, people can really struggle. You can get joints from an old person's hands to an old person's hands with big toe five overnight. I saw this one lady who went from having normal hands to all her joints were up and angry because she had the super saturation experiment going on in her fingers, And overnight, all her joints were swollen and angry, and actually you could see this white chalk sitting in there. And you can get it in the ears as well. And you get it, and lots of other places. So you do look around for other sites of this. There are other sorts of gout, pseudo-gout as well, which is calcium pyrophosphate deposition, and there are lots of potential things which are about that. But I think I have run out of time, so I can't even get on to ankylosing spondylitis. You have to invite me back yet again, I'm very sorry. So I'll talk about that. But there are lots of metabolic issues about this, which I can go through at another time or answer now if you wish. So I'll stop there because I've run out of time. I'll take any questions. Did I entertain you?
Yeah.
Good. Did anybody fall asleep?
No.
Good. That's what I was. You've had a busy week. You just had a lovely meal, and I'm last in the evening, and everybody stayed awake. That's the result.
That's good. You're actually 2 minutes early.
Am I? Oh, I'm taking questions. Sorry.
Thanks very much. Just very
No, we've got to read the questions first. Sorry.
Is there any evidence that cherry juice helps with gout?
Yes. Cherry juice changes the acidity of your urine. And in that acidity of your urine, it actually the uric acid is excreted more. So yes, there is evidence that it does work, but you have to be very careful with your patients because most cherry juice is very bitter, because it has to be the bitter cherries, not the sweet cherries. And so if you're going to stick it full of sugar, you're going to make it worse. And be careful other fruit juices, because actually some of the other fructose will actually aggravate gout as well. But yes, cherry juice, and actually that's one of the things I do recommend to my patients. You can get it, they get buckets of it from Tesco's. It has to be sugar-free, because these patients are metabolic. Metabolic equals pre-diabetes. Metabolic syndrome is central fetal obesity, so obesity range of middle, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, which is one of the lipids, gout, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure. It's the single highest risk factor for heart disease that you're going to get. Heart disease or stroke. You know, most of these patients that I see with gout are overweight, overindulged. Unfortunately, water tablets, diuretics, do bring up the uric acid levels, and you can change those a little bit. I mean, I keep telling the GPs to alter those to try and help that. Kidney problems are building up their levels, and various other things that will do it as well. But by and large, it is a disease of opulence of the developed world. Stands on.
Yeah, one more. You mentioned use of vitamin D and K as an adjunctive treatment. What sort of dosages are you talking about?
I can't tell you the vitamin K dose because I've only seen the abstract of that paper.
Right.
Vitamin K dose. I mean, people have been talking about vitamin K for ages, and I have to say I'm being a bit dubious with it, but this is one study that showed that vitamin D, as these of you have heard me talk before, vitamin D I think we should all be taking. Because we're all low. And vitamin D for osteoarthritis actually in the past has been quite disappointing. But obviously this is new data with K. On that dose, it was getting the levels up to high-end normal. So you're looking at 1,000 international units to 2,000 international units dosing. The dosing I use for rheumatoid disease is 2,000 units a day. That is even a modulatory dose. Vitamin D, if you get high levels high, actually down-regulates immune cells, antigen presenting cells, which are auto-reactive. They attack your body when your vitamin D levels are low. And now we're seeing that. So vitamin D is being used to treat MS, lupus, rheumatoid disease, type 1 diabetes. And we should all be taking it.
What dose did you say?
Sorry, vitamin D?
Yeah.
Depends what you're using it for.
But when you say we should all be taking them?
I take 2,000 units a day, because that's the dose that's been shown to work for inflammatory disease. And the recommended daily allowance, if you get multivitamin from the shop, is only 200. You have to take enormous doses to actually have problems with it. even if your levels are above normal, people don't get issues with it.
You're unlikely to
But the osteoporosis dose is 800 to 1,000 international units. But it's the study for osteoporosis is actually a very interesting trial in a French nursing home just south of Paris by a chap called Dupuy, and he gave vitamin D 800 units to half of the patients and placebo to the other half, the ladies who were in this nursing home. And the ones who had vitamin D, obviously their levels went up, but they halved their risk of a hip fracture. Halved their risk. And that wasn't because it did anything particularly to the bones. What it does, when their levels are low, you get muscle weakness. And that's, you see these people, they wobble. They've got proximal myopathy. So you keep the vitamin D levels up, the people are more stable, the people break into a lateral lumbar. So if you keep the muscles strong, they are less likely to do so. And there is some small data on Alzheimer's and on ischemic heart disease as well. Maybe beneficial.
Sorry, did you say there is a treatment type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, type 1 diabetes for most people is an autoimmune disease. It's not for everybody. If it's pancreatic insufficiency, it's not. So there's small evidence, and the reason this is small evidence is because this stuff is so cheap, there's no money in it. So nobody's going to do a big trial which costs $400 million to do to show great data. So if you look at small data, you can see that actually vitamin D is immunomodulatory. So when your levels are low, what happens? Your immune system doesn't know how to differentiate self from non-self. And so it activates this immune system attack against yourself. In type 1 diabetes, it's against insulin or against the pancreas. In psoriasis, it's against the skin or the joints. In lupus, it's against other bits. MS, it's against neurons in the brain. These are all immune diseases, and they can be traced back, a lot of them, not all, to an abnormality in the something called FOXP3 gene, which is codes for T helper cells, and this is a vitamin D based process. So in the test tubes, you give these cells exposure to vitamin D, they get better. In the real world, it seems to work, but it's very difficult because the sunlight. A lot of people take stuff anyway, so it's actually very difficult to get big data. In rheumatoid disease and in lupus, the data I can tell you about, we know that actually in small studies, if you give people these vitamin D, you will actually reduce the risk of reduce inflammation and increase the chance of going into remission and staying in remission. In lupus, you reduce the risk of heart disease. MS, you reduce relapses. I think everybody should go personally. Now they all want to see. There we go, that's fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.